chest technique of being long, and when you go to bed, roughly that wrist turn. He hesitates, yeah.
One was directly east of here, and then I leave out one. Dysert, that was 5 machine last year when they were doing restoration work on the old church, and they didn't put it back up again. I think they put it out here rather than have a dump somewhere. You know? Yeah. I do that quite a lot with old.
What?
Came along here one evening and he saw boys bowling with the head. So he got it set in the concrete. And you can still actually see, you know, it's better to say what's going. Look carefully, you can still see the ring. Unimportant. There's no distinction in debt. Debt is a great letter. That's basically what it means. So that's basically it. Now, in the early medieval period, around the 6th and 7th centuries, gravestones are found with people's names on them, mostly holy men and monks. Just a few words. But that tradition died out and didn't come back again until the 17th century.
electricity.
Sorry, I'm just told by Jack O'Day in America, who bought the castle and leased it to the Dysert Development Association, who did up the castle and opened it to the public. The room downstairs, which is now the coffee shop and that would originally have been the storeroom where you would have stored wheat and grain and things like that. And where the toilets are, that would have been the guard room for centuries would have been on duty. The next room up is probably an old chapel, a family chapel for the owners of the castle and that. In that room there's a murder hole. That was if the castle was attacked by intruders and they managed to get past the front door. The family would retreat up to the next room and pour burning oil or water or whatever, rocks, whatever was available down the murder hole to the enemy. The windows, as you can see, are all built so that it is easy to shoot out from inside, but very difficult to get an arrow through the windows from the outside. The stairway is also a method of defence. It's built so that the owner of the castle has a right-hand advantage when defending sword fighting up the stairs. The next room would have been originally the servants' quarters, and they would have slept on straw beds, straw mats and that. But when Cromwell attacked the castle and destroyed the upper floors, the gentry moved down, so the fireplace and the windows were put in then. At the moment we have different stone monuments and they're all done in chronological order around the room, and all of them are documented, but if you have any questions, the girls below will be happy to answer them. This room would originally have been the main bedroom, the family's bedroom, and the small room opposite would have been the children's bedroom. Up here where our halls were making nice and mouldy, there was a small prison cell, and where they would kept prisoners, or else if the castle was being attacked, the children would have been put up there for safety. The top floor is now a museum and with different artefacts from 1916 and 1921, which are all documented. And it would originally have been the family dining room, and you can also go out in the roof if you want. The view is fine. It's lovely. So if you have any more questions of that, you can ask me, and I'll just run a video for you now.
In northwest Clare has been inhabited since Neolithic times. The type of vegetation which abounds in this area of limestone crag could have been cleared by Stone Age farmers with greater ease than the dense woodland of other parts of Ireland. The parish is very fortunate in having numerous field monuments which help to trace the lives of the people from the earliest times to the present day. The earliest type of field monument here is probably the collapsed wedge tomb in the townland of Mullineen. This was probably built about 1500 BC for an important chief or dignitary living nearby. Although not yet excavated, it would have contained the cremated remains of the deceased in pottery urns. Below Dysert Castle on the northern side are a pair of Fort of Fear. Though barely discernible from the surrounding area, except by the most experienced field workers, they were once the cooking places of ancient nomadic bands of hunters, known in folklore as the Fiannan. Used from the Bronze Age until about 500 AD, they consist of a stone or wooden trough surrounded by a horseshoe-shaped low bank of burned stone pieces. The idea was to allow the surrounding wetlands to fill the trough, and then, by dropping preheated stone into the water, boil the meat, which was usually wrapped in straw. Experiments have proven that 50 gallons of water could be brought to the boil in 20 minutes using this method. The horseshoe mound, which subsequently built up around the trough, was made from the debris when the trough was continually cleaned out for reuse. Later in the first millennium AD, as this nomadic system of hunting and cooking was replaced by a more settled way of life, the people of Dysert began to build ring forts. These were of two types: earthen ring forts and stone ring forts, depending on the type of soil available. Many of these abound in the area, and fortunately most people are reluctant to interfere with them when reclaiming land. The finest example of an earthen fort is to be found in the townland of Drumcaven, at the left of the road to Rowan village. This consists of a double ring, the inner being about 10 feet high at present, and it would have enclosed the wooden circular houses of the local farmer. Directly below this, on the right-hand side of the road, is another fort, with lower fence enclosing about an acre of ground, in which the same family probably kept their livestock safe from wolves at night. After the introduction of Christianity by St. Patrick in the 5th century, many holy men searched for places of meditation, far from the temptations and distractions of common living. One such man was Tola, whose followers erected a small church at Dysert in the early part of the 8th century. Although information on Tola himself is scanty, his death is recorded in the calendar of saints as March 19th, 734 AD. And until recently, the local people used to make an annual pilgrimage to his holy well on that date. During the last century, the landlord, Mr. Hutchinson Singh, had the well filled up and covered until it was reopened in November of 1985. Many of these holy wells were pagan ritual sites before Christianity and the church, finding it difficult to keep the people from their annual visits, often decided to patronize them by giving them the names of saints. In 793, the Viking raiders from Scandinavia made their first attack on the monastic islands of Ireland's east coast. Finding them rich in gold and silver ornaments, they continued their incursions until finally defeated by Brian Boru's army in 1014. During the centuries of Viking terror, a tradition arose in Ireland of building round towers in which the monks would retreat with their valuables in times of attack. These towers were very tall, some reaching to 100 feet, and narrow, and contained 3 or 4 wooden floors reached by ladders. The doorway was usually 12 feet above ground level, and the ladder could be retrieved when the monks were safe inside. One such tower was built at Dysert, beside the church, sometime between 900 and 1100 AD, but was badly damaged by Cromwellian gunners in 1651. During the 12th century, fresh influences began to dictate a change in the type of monasticism in Ireland. Orders like the Franciscans, Dominicans and Augustinians began to be invited to build and recruit on the lands of progressive Irish chieftains, many of whom had travelled as pilgrims to sacred sites on the continent or the Holy Land. About this time, a new type of architecture, Romanesque, became popular in Ireland. Round, semicircular arches replaced the old lintel doorways and windows in many Irish churches and abbeys. Dysert O'D was no exception. The traditional west doorway was blocked up to be replaced by the present Romanesque door on the south wall. This exceptional doorway is composed of 4 orders, containing much variation in carvings, including chevrons, flowers, foliage, zigzag and interlacing, enclosed by a row of animal and human heads. The lancet windows of the church dated to the end of the 12th century. The church was extensively rebuilt, probably by the O'Dees, in the 17th century. Standing in the field to the east of the church is the famous and unique High Cross of Dysert O'Dee. The cross contains the figure of the bishop, probably St. Tola, and a crucifixion scene over his head on the east side. On other parts of the cross, various panels display ornamentations and scenes from the Bible. Local people still refer to the High Cross of Dysert as Crop Vanola. There are many theories concerning the meaning of this name, but the most probable is the Cross of the Blessing. Another unique feature of the cross is the head of Christ, which could be removed from the figure until recently. Tradition states that this was used by the people to cure toothache when placed against the jaw of the sufferer. Mr. Singh had the head permanently set in position during the last century to prevent theft. A ring of cement can still be seen surrounding it. During the early 1650s, the cross was maliciously damaged by Cromwell's soldiers who were garrisoned in nearby Dysert Castle. An inscription on the base states that the cross was repaired in 1683 by Michael O'Dee, the local chieftain. It again had to be repaired by Mr. Singh in 1871, and he also added his own inscription. In 1276, Edward I of England granted all of Thomond to Thomas de Clare. And by 1300, many Norman castles and villages had sprung up between Limerick and Lennox. In 1318, Richard de Clare decided to try and conquer the north and west of Thomond. He marched his army of about 600 horse and 200 foot soldiers to Ennis and Rouen and turned west to Dysert, the home of the O'Dees and one of the most powerful clans in County Clare at that time. De Clare divided his army into three. The first to ensure the reinforcements from O'Connell of Ennistimon could be stopped. The second group were to march southwest to Magona to intercept any help from that side, while the third, under his own command, were to attack O'Dee's stronghold at Dysert. He met a small body of O'Dee's troops at a ford on the stream where Mackin Bridge now stands, on the morning of the 10th of May, 1318. The O'Dees pretended to retreat over the ford, and de Clare, in his enthusiasm for victory, rushed in pursuit with some of his knights, cutting himself off from the main body of his troops. O'Dee's men, who lay in ambush, fell upon de Clare and killed him before he could be rescued by his own men. It is said that Richard de Clare was felled by the axe of Conor O'Dee himself. At this point, O'Dee was joined by the forces of Phelim O'Connell, Lachlan O'Hare, and the O'Briens, who fell upon the Normans with such ferocity that very few of the invading army survived with their lives. Many influential English knights were killed in the battle, and Clare remained free of English domination for another 2 centuries. At the end of the 15th century, due to Norman and European influences, the fashion of building tall, narrow tower houses became widespread throughout southwest Ireland. The O'Dee clan were responsible for building at least 4 of these between 1470 and 1500. Rana Castle, on the banks of Loch Raha, was demolished by Cromwellians in 1651, as was Magona to the south, while the tower houses of Dysert O'Dee and Ballygriffy were slighted. The battlements were thrown down, and the stairs were damaged. The castle of Dysert O'Dee was built about 1480 by Diarmaid O'Dee, and passed in and out of O'Dee hands numerous times during the next 2 centuries. It was captured by the Lord Deputy of the English Queen in 1570, but again was restored to the O'Ds, who invariably took the side of the Irish Catholic in the numerous wars that followed, and consequently the castle suffered from many attacks and sieges. One of the colourful inhabitants of Dysert was Moira Rua O'Brien, who later married Cromwellian officer John Cooper, when her own husband, Conor O'Brien, had died in battle at Inchicronan in 1650. Though her marriage to Cooper had allowed her to retain her lands for posterity, she later had him murdered and was brought to Dublin for trial. However, she was acquitted on the orders of Charles II. After the Act of Settlement in 1660, the O'Ds moved back into the castle of Dysert and lived in peace until 1689, when James II came to Ireland to raise a Catholic army against William III. After the defeat of James II, the castle and lands passed into the hands of the new Protestant landowners, the Saints, where it remained until early this century. In 1970, the castle was purchased by Mr. John O'Day of Wisconsin, a descendant of the original owners. It is difficult to tell when the Singh family came to live in Dysert, but it is possible that they inhabited Dysert Castle in the early part of the 18th century. Later the family built the fine Georgian farmhouse of Carhew and Mullineen. The Singh family also built a very fine lodge or house for guests and visitors to Dysert. The house, now in ruins, was completed in a rustic Georgian style and contains such fine features as cut stone lintels and sills, a low batter, probably styled in the castle, and a well-carved coat of arms over the door. The motto reads, Canon in Cielo, we will sing in heaven. Local tradition maintains that this motto was given to the family in the 16th century by Henry VIII, when he heard one of the boys singing in his church choir. He is reputed to have said, henceforth thy name shall be Sing. In 1823, Edward Singh came to live in Cardew House to manage his father's estates. He became converted to biblical fundamentalism and built 3 schools at Dysert, Ra and at Corofin. The Dysert School still stands on the hill overlooking the old church. Although Father John Murphy, the parish priest in Corofin, was violently opposed to the methods of teaching, feeling that they would undermine Catholic doctrine, Singh bribed or threatened the parents of local children in order to retain them in his schools. After evicting some dissenting families, things got worse for Edward Singh. His Dysert school was burned and his house was fired on by members of local sectoral societies. Singh describes the area as follows. Dysert, one of these districts where the Irish tongue is chiefly spoken, remarkable for the gross darkness which covered its people. Things came to a head when, on Ash Wednesday, 1831, shots were fired at Singh's car when he was returning from a neighbour's house. His young driver, Patrick Donnellan, was killed, but Singh himself was miraculously saved by a Bible he always carried in his breast pocket. It trapped the bullet. Both the Bible and bullet are on display in the Corofin Heritage Centre. After this incident, Edward Singh seemed to have lost his great enthusiasm for proselytizing. His family grave is to be seen just outside the wall of Dysert churchyard, and the gravestone, polished granite, is marvellously well preserved since 1871. During the years 1845 to 1847, the Great Hunger, brought on by 3 successive years of potato blight, ravaged Ireland. 1 million people died of starvation and disease throughout Ireland, while another million emigrated to Britain, Australia and the United States. Between 1841 and 1920, the population of Ireland dropped from 7 million to just over 2 million people. The west of Ireland suffered greatest during the famine years because of the people's total dependence on potatoes for food. The constant drain of people from Dysert to the United States between 1847 and 1960 has left the area dotted with ruins of cottages. The local national school, built in 1891, once served 2 teachers and up to 50 children who were taught to speak English as they prepared for the inevitability of emigration. However, the story of Dysert need not finish on such a sad and final note. With the coming of industry to the Shannon area, many people, both native and from outside, have begun to build and settle again. There is a spirit of renewal, but still there is room for some of the old ways. Although famine, immigration and the English education system tolls the final knell for the Gaelic language in Dysert, those who remained held on steadfastly to many of their traditions and customs. It is our earnest wish that what was begun by our Neolithic and Bronze Age ancestors, enhanced by cultures of Celt, Viking, Norman and English, will continue to blossom in the centuries to come.
You come through for this, okay? Okay. Up here.